Assalamu alaikum, welcome and karibuni to Aroma of Zanzibar's kitchen. Today we are making this delicious buttery French classic croissant. So over here I've got about 500 grams of flour. I added a little bit of salt, a little bit of sugar, some yeast, and I'm going to mention all the measurements in the description box below. There's a lot of talking today and I don't want to miss a thing. All right, now for the liquid I have mixed water and milk, 260 milliliters together. You can use milk alone, you can use water alone, but please remember that milk does add richness to the final product. All right, and my liquid was in room temperature. It was not warm. I'm trying to control the yeast over here. So we're just going to mix it to combine, and you can move into a flat surface, or you can use a stand mixer if you have. Please go ahead. For those of you who do not have a stand mixer, please watch what I do. Okay, so just going to start kneading the dough, and as soon as it comes together, I'm going to add the butter. The butter is about 80 grams and it's in room temperature. It's very soft and it's unsalted butter. So if you happen to have salted butter, please omit the salt in the ingredients. All right, now for the croissant, it's always advisable, for that matter any pastry, to use bread flour. If you don't have bread flour, you can use pizza flour. Now these flours, what you're looking for basically is a protein content of 11.5% up to 13 or 14. Okay, because that you're going to have very strong glutens that will be able to hold the butter. All right, so what we're looking for is a window pane like this. So when you keep it near the window, you can literally see the light passing through. Now this could take about 15 minutes to 25 minutes depending on the flour that you're using. If you're using all-purpose flour, it's going to take longer. All right, so once that's done, I'm just going to put it in the bowl, a little bit butter or oil, and then cover it and keep it in the fridge for about 2 hours. That's very, very important. We want to control the yeast because you don't want it to rise like crazy and it's going to be difficult to work with. All right, so now I'm going to work for the butter slab. Now I like to use 8 by 8 centimeters. You could use a rectangle or 6 by 4, 4 by 8, whatever you prefer. Okay, and for the butter, that's another important thing. You want to use a very, very fine, good butter. You're looking at 82 fat content. Very, very less water or no water at all, because it's easy to work with, it's pliable, and it's delicious. All right, so I'm just gonna press the butter to get into the size that I have drawn. So my butter was actually cold, and then gonna fold it nicely and keep it in the fridge until the dough is ready. Okay, so now my dough is ready, and you want to make sure that the butter and the dough are in the same temperature. Okay, so now for the dough, I'm going the old school method. I like to roll it like that. I've got the center very thick, like a little hump, and you can do the book style, but I like to do the envelope style. Okay, so just like that. Now for the book style, you can just put it in the middle and cover it on the other side and seal it. Okay, so I'm going to put the butter. You want to make sure the butter is not very cold, because when it's very cold, it's going to break. Okay, now in case if you feel that the butter is colder than the dough, then you can keep the dough in the freezer for about 5 minutes, and then you can envelope the butter. This is the envelope style. This is something that I still follow, that I learned in my culinary days. Okay, so I'm just going to seal it nicely to make sure the butter is all covered. All right, and you want to make sure all the time when you work with a dough, it is cold. Okay, so there we go. Now we are ready to roll. Just going to dust some flour, and I'm ready to roll. Now when you roll, another thing is you want to make sure that you do not press your rolling pin. You just roll it. Okay, and if the butter is in the same temperature as the dough, then the butter will just slide and roll along with the dough. If it's cold, it's gonna break, and you'll find that towards the end. Okay, so now since my butter slab was 8 inches, I roll this to 24 three times, as you can see, and then fold it, and the seam should always be on your right hand side. And we're gonna keep this in the fridge for an hour or freezer for about 25 minutes. So after an hour, the seam always on your right hand side, and we're gonna roll. So the first fold we did was the 3 folds, okay? And now we're gonna do the 4 folds. Okay, so we're gonna roll it again. So now you would multiply this according to whatever size you have done the butter, okay? And so now we're gonna roll it. Okay, want to make sure there's no butter coming out or sliding out, and you can trim the ends if you want to. It's not necessary at this point. And then now we're gonna fold it like that and like this, and then you're gonna meet them in between. So those are 4 folds. Okay, dust, and then okay. Lamination is very important. The temperature in the room that you're working on is very, very important. And that's the reason why I started with when I did the yeast, I didn't use warm water. Okay, and cover it again. You're going to put it in the fridge for an hour and freezer for about 25 to 30 minutes. Okay, I always prefer to use the fridge because it's easy to control than when you put it in the freezer. Okay, now for the 3rd time. Okay, you need patience, okay, a lot of patience. And if you feel the butter is a little bit hard, you just take your rolling pin and you just, ease it out like that before you roll. Or you can just keep it for about 5 minutes and then you can roll it. Okay, so there we go. Now for the 3rd time. Okay, so I used, the flour that I used was 19% of protein. It's for pasta actually, but I was really desperate that I took it, so I mixed it together with the all-purpose flour. So it's very important to have gluten, a lot of gluten. That's why we rest the dough in the fridge for those many hours so that the dough can rest and develop very, very strong glutens. Okay, so now for the 3rd time we do the 3 fold. So this is the 3 4 3 fold. Okay, so we're going to go back to the 3 folds like that, and then again the same thing. Okay, you're gonna dust the flour and put it back in the fridge for about an hour. Okay, so the temperature in the room is always between not more than 75 degrees Fahrenheit. That's about, I think, 25 degrees Celsius. You want to work in the cold room always. Okay, otherwise it's very difficult to control. But if you feel that your dough is warm, you can always put it in the fridge in between, or you can keep it longer, okay, so that it's easy to work with. So now we are on the final part. Now this part, you can roll a big slab if you have enough room in your freezer or fridge. Freezer basically, because we're going to keep this overnight. Or you can cut your croissants and roll them and then put them in the freezer overnight, and then you thaw them if you want to bake them. Okay, and what I like to do is I like to cut this into 3. I divide this into 3, as you can see. And before I forget, poofing the croissant is always in the room temperature or maybe a bit colder. Most of the times, if I have enough time, I like to keep them in the fridge and let them rise slowly. But on this day, I kept them in the oven, and the oven was turned off. I had the clip, I had to remove it because it was the video is very long. You may have some bubbles on the dough. You can just take a pin and, remove them, but I couldn't find a pin in my kitchen. So over here, I'm just going to divide this into 3. That's what I like to do. I usually divide it into 3, and then you're going to keep it in the freezer overnight. The overnight part is very, very important. Okay, you see those layers? It's important to develop the flavors, to get your glutens to become strong, and to create the honeycombs, everything. So these went in the freezer. I cover them nicely. And then this is the next day. I'm using only one. Okay? I'm using only one, and then we're going to roll this. Now for this one slab, actually you don't have to cut it into 3. You can just do 2. That's fine. And you can get between 6 to 8 croissants depending on the size that you want. I really love the large ones sometimes, but I always end up doing the small ones. Okay, so over here, I'm just gonna roll on both sides because I want the height and the width as well. Okay, and you want to roll this to maybe not even, yeah, about half an inch. No, not an inch. Yeah, no, 3.5 inch. I'm so bad in numbers. Okay, excuse me, please. And it's so late, I can't remember. Okay, so I'm just trimming this so that I can get my croissant nice and neat. And I will write the measurements of the thickness of the croissant. Okay, and so we're just going to make some triangles. All right, and I love croissant. I think the last time I did croissant was 5 years ago, and my last video was 2016 I did a video, and I just thought it needed some upgrading. All right, so now I'm just gonna, you can stretch this a little bit, and then we're just gonna roll. Now for the egg wash, you can do yellow or you can do white. I like to do white because I really don't like too much color. And so you're gonna do the first egg wash before you poof, and then the second egg wash after they have poofed up. Okay, and I put this in the oven, and the oven was not on. Okay, please do not turn on the oven, and it takes minimum 2 hours for these to rise perfectly, and you want the tip at the bottom. All right, okay, so, and also when you place them in the tray, you want to keep enough space because these would become big, so you don't want them to to interfere with each other. All right, so this took about 2 hours, and we are ready. Okay, so we're gonna egg wash again, and this will bake at 425 degrees Fahrenheit. That's about 207 Celsius for about 10 minutes. You want to start high and then go low at 190 Celsius, which is 375 for about 15 minutes. You say my croissants, they're nice, but I had to take them home. They were still hot. Now this is uneven butter and egg, but still they tasted beautiful, and I'm just going to show you how they were inside. And thank you so much. You see, the butter was not evenly spread, and this was the one that has a beautiful spread. Thank you so much. For more recipes, please visit me at Aroma of Zanzibar. You'll find all the measurements, which are very important, in the description box below. Thank you. Welcome again. Bye-bye.